Hello and welcome. Today I'll be taking you through my media industry analysis of the digital divide. Enjoy. The global spread of COVID-19 has restricted all aspects of day-to-day life, and through the affordances of digital technologies, many Americans have been able to maintain employment, continue their education, and maintain at least some aspects of normalcy. However, for many Americans, this sudden transformation to almost an 100% digital environment has placed their ability to provide for their families in jeopardy and bringing to light a critical obstacle that has limited the mobility of under-resourced and underprivileged communities for decades. In 2009, the United Nations advocated internet access as one of the basic human rights of contemporary society, and in 2001, the United Nations Development Program declared that information and communication technologies were requisites for economic and human development, solidifying the significance of global technologies going forward. So, what is the digital divide? In 2019, the FCC reported that 21.3 million Americans lacked access to high speed internet. However, upon further review, it was revealed that the FCC underestimated the statistic by 20 million, meaning that the number of Americans lacking access to internet was closer to 40 million. The digital divide is an unequal distribution in the access to, use of, or impact of information and communication technologies, or ICTs, based on a number of unique factors, and due to these factors, there is an uneven distribution of the necessary knowledge and resources needed to utilize the affordances of digital media and technologies. And the term was coined by Larry Irving in the 90s, and in 1999 he declared that the divide between those with access to new technologies and those without is now one of America's leading economic and civil rights issues. The digital divide cannot be understood outside of the context of the socio-economic factors that surround it. We often associate new technologies with social progress and the idea of out with the old and in with the new. However, a good amount of media scholarship has focused on how traditional, social, and cultural norms, values, and biases find their way into the software and hardware of modern tech. And it is important to understand that social hierarchies do not dissipate with the development of new technologies. In fact, it is quite the opposite. Technological development simply provides new mechanisms for these inequalities and social hierarchies to be reinforced. And some of the factors that enable the digital divide include race, income, education, and geography. And it is very difficult to separate all of these factors from one another because more often than not, they all work hand in hand. However, for the purpose of this analysis, we will give more focus to race as well as economic and income levels to help illustrate the divide and also briefly discuss some of the reasons that the divide exists in these contexts. Based on the research from the Pew Research Center, the digital lives of lower income Americans and higher income Americans remains very different. For households making below $30,000 a year, more than 44% do not have home broadband service or a traditional computer. However, for families making $100,000 or more, access to these technologies is nearly universal. Studies also show that under-resourced communities tend to use whatever tech they have at their disposal to participate in the digital world. And for 26% of Americans making $30,000 or less, smartphones are their only access to the internet, opting to use data over broadband. This phenomenon can be attributed to several factors. In many lower income communities, broadband internet is viewed as a luxury that cannot be afforded. Along with this, the increased mobility of lower income families occurs because lower income families make up the majority population of renters. For low income households, the constraints of physical, social, and economic mobility shapes personal decisions about the types of internet services and infrastructure they adopt, meaning many people in that situation will not feel as comfortable investing in hefty installation fees every time they have to move to a new rental as someone in a more stable home environment would be comfortable doing. I have analyzed a similar phenomenon among minority groups. Once again, based on research from the Pew Research Center, in America in 2019, African Americans and Hispanics remain less likely to own a traditional computer or high speed internet at their home. Additionally, African Americans and Hispanics are more likely to rely on their smartphone for a number of activities such as seeking health information or looking for work. When you consider all the different things we rely on the internet for, you can understand why the digital divide is such a significant issue. Nowadays, we use the internet to apply for jobs, to pay bills, for networking, and even schooling is becoming increasingly digital. And for families relying on smartphones instead of laptops or desktop computers, it is likely that they could run into some obvious issues. Job seeking and company sites may not be friendly to smartphone software, and things like uploading CVs, resumes, or cover letters can be very difficult on a mobile phone device. If you think about it in this way, you can understand why just having access and the ability to use proper technology and equipment is a form of privilege in itself, emphasizing how the digital divide is exacerbated by social inequalities, but can also, in the same moment, further solidify social hierarchies and divisions. The relationship between the ramifications of COVID-19 and the digital divide is proving why the status of the digital divide in America is so critical. With the shutdown of schools and non essential businesses, many have opted to work and, as we are doing right now, attend school at home. However, for 35% of school age children, they have no access to the necessary technology needed to participate with their classmates. And even though many schools are now providing the physical technology needed in the form of laptops and tablets with no access to the internet, what students are really getting is expensive paperweights. When the entire world was not shut down due to a global pandemic, many students and workers relied on public establishments and businesses to gain access to the internet. An example of this is a local McDonald's in a community in Kansas City that was a popular after-school site for kids to do their homework. However, now that most American communities are shut down, the source is no longer an option, putting their ability to earn a living or go to school in question. As one man in these underprivileged communities so blatantly put it, depending on where you live, you either have incredible access to technology or you don't. And the longer and longer this goes on, their ability to gain the basic needs of survival will continue to be in jeopardy. In conclusion, I hope you now have a better understanding of the digital divide and the social aspects that fuel it. The digital divide greatly limits the potential for economic and educational success, which puts limitations on social mobility. Digital technologies have opened brand new avenues and opportunities for the global economy and marketplace. However, they have not leveled the playing field. Technological inequality and divisions have always existed in analog forms, and now they exist in digital ones. However, because the digital space is becoming so crucial to day-to-day life, the potential impact of these divides is much greater and there is much more at stake. The socioeconomic factors that are responsible for opening up the divide to begin with are now the same variables that are sustaining it. Thank you for your time, and I hope you have a good rest of the semester.